So you are releasing a cookbook biography, which is a very interesting combination of two power artifacts. First of all, what impact has food and recipes overall had on your life?
Sure. Well, I started when my parents were both working. We came very middle class or lower middle family. So my both parents worked. At 12 years old, I decided that I'm going to learn how to cook, so I don't have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every night. Which I did. And then I realized I liked it, so I would like read the cookbooks, and I pretty much learned how to cook, pretty much anything. And but I just always have loved it, and I ended up in when I was in college, I worked in a Chinese restaurant, and I worked in an Italian, and if I wasn't doing all this TV stuff, I'd probably still be in the kitchen of a restaurant. But what I found is that for me, the cooking, I mean, not only do I get enjoyment out of cooking something and going, wow, this is really good, but going in the kitchen and it's almost like therapy. Like out here in LA, everybody goes and to psychiatrists and stuff. I've never had to do that because no matter how bad the day is, I go in the kitchen at night and I think it's that process of cutting and plating and matching colors and stuff like that. I just find it very soothing. So it's taken away, my need for having therapy or meditation or stuff. It's become my meditation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've always had that connection with food as well, but that came to me only now at 23. How did you acquire that at 12? It must have been something where it was almost like your safe space?
Yeah, it was a safe day. And like I say, when mom and dad both work and they don't come home in time for your dinner, your choices are very limited. Make a sandwich out of either peanut butter and jelly or a salami sandwich. So I just learned how to do stuff, and then I would eat stuff in a restaurant, and I go, I could probably figure out how they did that, and I just start experimenting and stuff like that. And I found that I could go to a restaurant and eat something, and I'll go home and try it. I'll never get it right the first time, but I'll get 80%. But when I do it the second time, I know what I didn't do right the first time, so I kind of get really close to it. And and then I started cooking for people, and you would get the accolade. People go, "I can't believe you know how to cook this. That's amazing," and stuff like that. So I started doing that, and then literally in college, I worked. I was doing delivery at a Chinese restaurant in New York, and in New York, everybody does Chinese takeout, um, and I would always, you go in the kitchen and you pick up the bags and you bring them to people's houses and stuff, and I would always ask the chefs to teach me how to do stuff, and they just got the biggest kick out of teaching the Caucasian kid how to cook Chinese food, and but they could tell that I was passionate about it and I was good at it. And then they were doing a Chinese New Year party, and it was miserable weather in the February and um, big snowstorm, and they had a party planned, and three of the chefs didn't make it to work, and the head chef just looked at me and he went, "You got to jump in and cook." I was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, okay, I could do that." So I ended up in the Chinese restaurant in the kitchen for 2 years. Um, and you kind of perfect everything. So if you didn't know something, you could always ask. And like I said, they just got a kick out of teaching me how to cook it. And and then I did that, and then I ended up getting a job in an Italian restaurant in New York, and so I really perfected my Italian. And but I buy a cookbook literally every month. I buy a new cookbook. I want to know how to cook from every country in the world. So I just buy the book and I cook. Even if I don't eat it, I cook it because, like I say, it's my replacement for meditation or therapy. And and it just amazes people. It's great for friends to come over and be able to cook and amaze them with my skills. And so that's kind of it.
Yeah, I need to invest more in cookbooks. It's interesting how your relationship with food and recipes is also kind of parallelized with your media industry experience. Like there's a lot of meditation, a lot of kind of uh, insane experience, and also step-by-step process in the media industry as well. That
Yeah.
kind of parallelizes nicely. So I guess You're from Brooklyn. You were born to immigrant parents, is that correct?
Yeah, my parents, my dad's family all came from Turkey.
Mm,
Um, and my mother's side of the family came from Siberia.
right. Oh, wow. Fascinating. It's Turkey
Yeah.
and Siberia growing up in Brooklyn. And so you were saying that if you hadn't found the media industry, you'd still be in the kitchen somewhere, probably in a Michelin star kitchen. But how did you find the media industry, or how did the media industry find you?
Well, was the first kid in the family to graduate from college, and I thought that I would be my degree was in economics. I thought I would be a teacher of history or economics. I thought the city of New York cut the budgets and they weren't hiring. They put a freeze for 5 years, so I had to get a job. And somebody I knew was in the electricians union, Electrical Workers of America. And they said, oh, we just organized this thing. It's called cable TV. I don't know if anybody's ever going to pay for television, but, um, go see the shop steward there and tell them the union sent you and they'll give you a job. And I said, I just want something temporary until I figure out what I do with my degree. So I ended up going there, and they gave me a job as an assistant underground splicer, which meant I worked under the streets of New York every day with the rats and the roaches for $90 a week. And um, but the all of a sudden they were going, "Hey kid, you're using all the equipment that usually takes 2 years to learn, and you're doing it in 2 weeks. How did you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I read the instruction booklet. I mean, it wasn't really rocket science." And so I kind of went from assistant splicer to the splicer to a construction guy to a service guy. And just at that time, the company, which was an independent, then ended up getting bought by Time Incorporated, which before Time Warner. So they were a publishing company, but they made this decision that they were going to become a media company over a 10-year period. So they were doing a contract negotiation with the union, and the union guy, just looked at me. He goes, "Hey, kid, you know how to read and write. You probably know about this negotiating stuff. We're going to put you on the committee." So, here I am, 23 years old. I'm on the negotiating committee and um, stuff. And so I got to know all the Harvard and Yaleys that were, coming from the other side, and they got to go, "Hey, wait a second, there's a guy here that actually could read a balance sheet and stuff like that." So I got noticed by the management folks, and but we did a very successful negotiation, and the right after it, the union guy said, "We love what you did. We're going to make you a union official." And I'm like, "I'm 23 years old, And so they ended up making me the vice chairman of the Cable TV Workers of America, like at 23,
23.
which was totally bizarre. Um, but it was a position of strength because theoretically, all the Harvard and Yale guys couldn't fire you, but no matter what you did, because they didn't want the wrath of the union.
Exactly.
And so I was doing that, and they kept going, "Hey, we want you to leave the union and come into management." And finally, they stuck a guy in as president of Manhattan Cable, a guy named Nick Nicholas, who actually went on to become the president of Time Warner after the merger. And he was like, "Larry, we need you in management. We need you in management." And then finally, I said, "Okay," and I jumped over to the management side, and I ended up very quickly becoming director of operations for all the technical operations. I mean, I don't have any technical degree, but I know how to read. Um, and so I had service and installation and construction and the guys that work in the sewers and stuff like that. So I was like 25 and I had 300 and some odd people reporting to me. And then when cable got a little more sophisticated, they made me director of corporate development. They bought the biggest cable company in the
Mhm.
country. Time was a company out of Denver called American Television Corporation, and so they gave me this job to find new uses of cable television wires other than just providing entertainment. So, back then I'm doing data communications and remote medical diagnostics and all the things that eventually, a decade later, the internet would do. But we were doing them on a local level using the cable wires. And And then the big cities all around started figuring out that cable was good for more than just good reception, and they all wanted cable, but they wanted the cables to go under the ground, not on telephone poles, which is where all the rural systems were built. So I ended up getting recruited by actually a Canadian company out of Toronto that won the franchise for Los Angeles, and Los Angeles wanted underground, and they tried to recruit me, and I'm like, hey, I'm a New York kid. I'm not going to La La Land. And finally, the chairman of the company said, you know, you got a girlfriend? I'll fly you out to LA. I'll put you in the Beverly Hills Hotel for 2 days, and think of it as a vacation. I want an hour of your time. And I was like, well, as long as you understand, there's no way I'm taking that job. I'll do it. So, I did it. And, and I was a little bit of an ass. I was like, okay, you got 59 minutes left, you got and whatever. And then finally he said, what do you want? And I named something crazy. And he said, that's how you're out of your mind. And I went, yeah, exactly. And I left and went back to New York. And, it was like one of those days it was freezing and there was snow. New York is pretty the first day it snows. The next day it's like black sludge. So I'm like walking to work and the cab comes by and splashes me with like black snow. And yeah, I'm like, California really wasn't that bad. What if I shouldn't have been that rude to the guy. And, I get there and they call me and they say, well, that guy called from Toronto and he wants you to call. I call back and he goes, look, what you asked for is ridiculous, but how fast could you be here? Um, so, I quit my job there and I went out to LA and they literally handed me one piece of paper that said, here's the franchise from the city of LA. Here's a credit line with Toronto Dominion. Build the cable system. Call us if you need us. And yeah, I was 31. And it was nuts. And, building this, literally the first two-way 61 channel cable system built in America. And, but that's when I got into programming because before I never had programming. And then you're a Brooklyn kid, you're out in California and all your friends are going to parties and the premieres and all of that stuff. And I call the studios and say, hey, put me on those lists. And they were like, nah, you're like the telephone company, you're a utility. We're not putting you on the list. And finally I said, okay, I don't understand. The most important marketing vehicle you have for a movie is the movie trailer. But yet the only time I ever see a movie trailer is when I'm in the movies. I go, it seems a little bit backwards to me. Wouldn't you want me to see that in my house to make me want to go to the movies? And they were like, yeah, but we can't really afford it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So then finally I just called them back and said, okay, tell you what, you send me the movie trailers, I'll put them on TV for you, but you put me on those lists for the parties. And they did it. And when we would do marketing surveys, what's your favorite channel? People go, I love CNN, I love MTV, I love that trailer channel. I mean, we didn't even give it a name. And I'm going, wait a second, I get the best 2 minutes of a $50 million movie. Back then they were only 50. And I get those for free and people love it. I said, interesting. Anyway, the company from Canada sold out and they were like, okay, Larry, you'll come to Toronto and work out of Toronto. And I'm like, no, no, no. I said, I didn't go from New York to LA to go back to the cold. I'm not doing that. So my friend Alan and I, we were kicking around ideas. And he said, I've always played with this idea of MTV of the movies. And I said, wait a second. I said, MTV takes a music video they get for free. They stand a host in front of a green screen who goes, and Madonna has a new video. I said, we could get these trailers and we could stand a host in front of a green screen and go, and Schwarzenegger has a new movie. I said, it's basically the same thing. So we wrote a plan. We thought we were really smart. And at that time, the going rate for starting a TV network was somewhere around 60 or 100, 60 to 100 million US. And, everybody say, yeah, it's a good idea, but you're not a big media company. You're not Time Warner. You're not Fox. You can't start a TV network. TV networks are started by big media companies, not by people. And we weren't smart enough to listen, so we just kept going. And then 3.5 years in, we found a guy on Wall Street who said, I love this idea. I'll give you money. And we were like, great, could you give us more like the 100? And he goes, oh, no, I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5. So I'm like, what are we supposed to do with 2.5 million? because that's all I could sign for. So Alan and I said, you know what? We'll take the 2.5 and we'll figure it out. So I had a friend who was teaching radio, television, film in the University of Texas in Austin. And I called him up and said, do you have any kids who need intern jobs? And so he said, yeah, we had a hard time placing kids this year. So he sent us 31 interns. So and people don't realize because they look at what it is today, which is this giant monster, and they don't realize we started with 11 employees and 31 interns and $2.5 million. Um, Now it's in 142 countries and arguably the biggest influencer of pop culture in the world. I mean, we brought you the Kardashians and Howard Stern and Hawk Soup and all of that stuff. So that's kind of the origin story of it. Now, we laugh and say we were very lucky, but it turns out looking back, we did a bunch of smart things. Um, and that saying, the necessity is the mother of invention. Without a lot of money, we had to be really smart and creative.
Yeah, no, that the intellect and the creativity, especially when you're under pressure, is something that really makes those diamonds.
Yeah.
You were mentioning Talk Soup and Howard Stern's show, which were massive hits. What do you think made these programs resonate so strongly with audiences at the time?
Well, first you start with the fact that since we didn't have a lot of money, we couldn't afford like really good equipment. And we actually bought industrial equipment that people were doing sales training tapes with. And so it looked very pirate.
Mm.
Um, so, here you had the very polished Entertainment Tonight and things like that. And, here we were with 24 hours a day to fill. So we had to be really creative. But we put all of our money into picking hosts. So, and everybody says, "Oh, you were so lucky. You had Greg Kinnear, and Greg won Academy Award, and then Julie Moran became the first woman to host Wide World of Sports, and Katie Wagner, Lifestyle of the Rich and Famous." That was not an accident. We said we're never going to dazzle people with fancy production, so we're going to pick hosts that you're going to feel something. Love them or hate them, you're going to feel something.
Mm.
And I think we interviewed over 7,000 people to get the first five because we realized that was if we're going to hit the home run, that's going to be where it's going to be. And
100%.
so we started with that, and then when we started getting a little, and as soon as we went on the air, everybody said, "Oh, you should have told us that's what you want to do. We would have given you money 3.5 years ago." But then as soon as we started getting a little bit of advertising money, um, Alan and I took a very odd look at Hollywood. We didn't look at it. This was not rocket science. We go, Hollywood is funny stuff. Don't make believe it's like something it's not. So, one of the first big things that we did, we applied to go to the Academy Awards as press, and we got denied. And they said, "Oh, you're some little cable network. No, you can't go." So, again, being Brooklyn street kid and basically hiring a lot of interns and street kids, we literally climbed over the fence with the cameras, and we were on the red carpet. Um, and then people going, "So, Mr. Cruz, tell us about your next movie." It's very short soundbite stuff. And we were there going, "Wow, Tom, that's a great outfit you get. Like whose stuff are you wearing?" And yeah, and so and when people watch it, they go, "Oh my God, that was such good cover." We got thrown out. We got caught and thrown out after, but they're going. It looked like you were taking us in some place where we weren't supposed to be, and we're going. Oh, little do they know that we weren't supposed to be there, and so we were very pirate. We were very different. People would fight for 20 seconds on Entertainment Tonight. But yet, when a new movie was coming out, good or bad, we could spend hours. So if you were a film fan and you like foreign film, you could never find anything about foreign film and directors and stuff like that. We would dedicate, entire shows to things. So we super serve the audience that love film and celebrities and, the media world in general.
Yeah, you also mentioned in previous podcasts that tenacity, humility, and learning from failure are essential for your success, for success in general. Do you have a specific example for your career where these qualities did make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at one of the real turning points for there was Again, we were very pirate, and people recognized that. And in the world of Hollywood, we were actually the first TV network. Even though Hollywood is considered the entertainment capital of the world, there was no TV networks in Hollywood, which was odd.
Mm.
So we purposely put the company in Hollywood. So we were Hollywood's channel. And so we got the attention of a lot of the agents and managers and celebrities and stuff. But we were we weren't out there looking to ruin someone's life by discovering that they're cheating on their spouse or whatever. We
Not
just were
TMZ.
celebrities, and we just love coverage, and we let people be themselves. Like
Yeah.
people would come and go, uh, Larry. I they always ask me the same questions. I would love to be a host. We go, well, we'll go in the studio. We'll turn the lights on. I mean, 24 hours a day, you can do a lot of stuff. So we had people like Paula Abdul and people like that who would and the Wayans brothers. They would just be in the neighborhood. They would drop in and we turn the lights on and stuff like that. But there was a very big actor named Jack Lemmon at the time, and Jack was in The Odd Couple, and he was very famous. But he wouldn't do media. He would never do media about his projects. So when I talked to his manager, I said, "Well, I want Jack," and he said, "Jack doesn't do interviews." I go, "Well, what does Jack do?" He goes, "He loves playing the piano." I go, "Okay, great." I said, "I'll get a piano. I'll put it on the set. Jack can come in for an hour and play the piano." They go, "Yeah, but he doesn't want to do the interview." I said, "Nobody will talk to him. He could just sit there for an hour and play the piano." So he did it, and he came in, and after about half an hour, he's kind of looking around, waiting for somebody to talk to him. Realized that we were actually going to honor the promise we made to his manager, and he just got so comfortable, and he just started talking. And for a half an hour, he told all the stuff that people wanted to ask him for the last 20 years. And word got around, and they were going like, "Wow, they, how did that network that we never heard of get Jack to come on and do it?" So they realized we were there not to tear down the industry, but to celebrate the industry. So
Right.
we would get people coming on and doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, when you look at the shows, I mean, the first real show we did was Talk Soup, and everybody thought I was out of my mind. They go, "Larry, you
Why?
want a TV show that makes fun of TV shows?" And I'm
Mm.
like, "Yeah, exactly." And but we got everybody to play along. So you like all the TV people knew that we weren't out there to hurt them, and that what we were doing was really going to bring light to what they do, even though we were poking fun at it and stuff. And it helped a lot of people like build audience and stuff like that. And that crazy show, that everybody said will never work went 26 years. Um, and and then when we wanted to put Howard on, and we met him. He was in a New York, radio guy, and I said I want to put cameras in this guy's radio studio, and they were like, "Larry, radio's been dead for 40 years. Why would we do that?" And I said, "You don't get it. It's not a radio show. It's a sitcom."
Mhm.
Uh, and it's an ensemble cast and stuff like that. And obviously Howard did pretty well. Um, so we were doing just a lot of stuff that people couldn't imagine that we would ever see, they would ever see on TV. And so it broke through, and and I really realized early on that Hollywood, the word Hollywood, is no longer like the center of like where you make movies and TV shows. It was really becoming a measure of creativity and quality. But as technology brought the price down lower and lower, you could make movies and TV shows anywhere. Um, so we really focus on building foreign. And we said people around the world love Hollywood and Hollywood gossip. And so we focus on building foreign. I think in the first year we were in 14 different countries, which was unheard of at that point. I mean, now it's 142. And but like, with technology, I can take my iPhone and go to Nigeria this afternoon and make a movie on my iPhone. You don't have to come to Hollywood. But you have to understand that Hollywood mentality. It's got to be quality. It's got to be creative and stuff like that. And, that kind of thinking really separated us out.
You also lived in China and Russia, is that correct? Lived and worked?
Yeah, yeah. I've had, well, I was still at E. I was helping some friends who were doing some stuff in Russia, and the mayor of St. Petersburg asked me to help them start a music festival to raise money for the Children's Hospital and the orphanage. So we started a company there. we do this big festival, and went about 31 years until the Ukraine war, um, where in 6 days we'd raise 100% of the budget for the orphanage and the hospital, and in doing stuff there, I had a TV show. I said, they're going through such hard economic times that they come home from work, they don't need to read Dostoevsky, they need something mindless. And so we brought soap operas in there, and we had a very popular soap opera five days a week for 11 years. And then so I was doing that, and we had a successful business, but I was still an E at the beginning of that. And then I decided that it's time to go to China, because I started to see the changes in China. So I actually got invited into China by one of the Chinese government agencies who wanted to be something I did for the Russians, which was help them rewrite regulation for media so that if they're going to be a capitalist society or a consumer-based society, media has to look a little bit familiar to Western marketers. Like ads are 30 seconds, 60 seconds. They're not whatever you
Fair.
feel like.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, not very complicated. So I did that with the Russians. And then the Chinese liked the Russian model. They went to the Russians, and the Russians said, no, 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 it's this guy in LA who did it for us. And so I got called in by the Chinese. So I worked with them on that. And then I was teaching young TV executives the process of creativity for profit. Heck, theoretically, that was the real name. And then, they just said, hey, why don't you start a little company here so we can learn from you? And so we started a little media company there. We do TV and film and branded entertainment. Now we do a lot of immersive. We do live events. We're just in the process. We're booking Shrek the musical for 16 weeks in China, and we're working on doing Kanye West tour and things like that. So we do everything in China. But then with COVID and the quarantines, I wasn't going to quarantine in a Chinese hotel for 3 weeks like they wanted us to at the beginning. So I started doing stuff here in the US again. So everything I'm doing now here is kind of everything, call it social impact. Um, Everything has to have something good. It has to be more than just entertaining. There has to be some socially beneficial part of whatever we're doing. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I do want to ask what kind of experiences from Russia and China kind of fed your media machine in America. But before even that, we talk about food and recipes. There's a lot of risk that goes into that. When you're getting a new cookbook and you're trying a new recipe that you haven't tried before, there's that kind of like not anxiety, but still like, is this going to work out? Will these flavors interact in a way that is appealing to other people, even to myself? And so risk is a big part of that. Risk is also a big part of business as well. And if I remember correctly, a bank account had gone down to 60,000, if I'm not mistaken.
No, $60.
Oh, $60. Okay. What was that like of having that bank account be in that place and needing to rise from the ashes, let's say?
Well, like I say, Alan and I were at it for like 3.5 years, and nobody would give us any money. And literally, I was down to $60 in the bank, and I had gotten married right before then, and uh, my wife Carolyn was pregnant with the first kid, and she was like, "Hey, we've been sticking this out for pretty long, but now we've got another little person we got to worry about." And I'm like, I don't, I'm not ready to give it up yet and stuff. And then we met this guy who worked for Warner Brothers actually, and we told him, he said, it's a great idea. You'll never get the money out of Warner Brothers. Go see this guy in New York. He's his company just went from being a bond house. They just started investment banking, and he's the head of investment banking. So we went to see him, and it was kind of weird. When Al and I walked in, he had movie posters on the wall, and Al and I just kind of looked at each other and said, "This is weird." And he's like, "Oh, I love this. I used to be the entertainment reporter for my college newspaper." And we were like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Could you give us 100 million?" And he's like, "No, I can't. I'm only allowed to sign for 2.5." Um, and and literally turned around because we went on the air literally 3 months after we got the first money, which is amazing. Most networks are in planning for 2 to 3 years, if not more. And but like I say, as soon as it went on, everybody went, "Oh my God, it's of course that's going to be it." Um, so it turned around literally on a dime.
I do. One of our mutual friends, Aaron, was telling me about how 10 years ago you had told some people to go into AI that were kind of getting aged out of Hollywood, let's say. Can you speak more about that? Like, why did you tell them to go into AI from all of the things?
Well, I'm a big believer that technology fundamentally changes the media and entertainment business. And it makes it more accessible to more and more people. And um, and just looking back, and again, my degree was in economics with a minor in history. So I studied history a lot, and I said, you know what? If you look back at painting, it started with cavemen painting on the wall of a cave. I said when somebody developed canvas and oil paint, they probably weren't really happy. But you know what? Progress marches on, whether you like it or not. I said then you move to later days. You had horse ranchers that wanted everybody to be in a horse and buggy. So when somebody developed cars, they weren't real happy with that. But look in the street. There are a lot of cars out there, and there are very few horse and buggies. Um, when technology has a good component, you can't hold it back. What you got to do is figure out how you control bad people from doing bad things with technology, which I think our politicians, both yours and ours, are just now beginning to realize they can't make believe it's going to go away, which it's not going to go away. So, but I've been, I've always loved, how to implement technology to make me competitive. I mean, how do I compete with a Rupert Murdoch, and I got to start using technology way before he figures it out, so that I could be competitive. And, I started using AI. And, so if someone would come to me and go, we want to do a TV series on spoons, could you develop it? And I could develop anything, but it would take me 5 days to kind of think it through and write a little scenario for how we could do that. But now using ChatGPT 4, or GBT when it first came out, I kind of put that stuff in, and in 30 seconds, I get what used to take me 5 days. And it's never 100%. Takes me an hour to clean it up. I said, but now in 1 hour, I'm doing what used to take me 5 days. I said, how could I not love that? And um, so when the strikes came, and everybody's worried AI is going to put us out of business. I went to the Writers Guild and folks are in it. Writers over 50 in Hollywood have always been discriminated against. Um, so there's actually a whole group of writers. And so I went to them and we work with a bunch of writers and over 50, and we taught them how to use it. And so because they're great storytellers, we're talking about people who won Academy Awards and Emmy Awards and stuff like that, but you can't get arrested in Hollywood because they're over 50. And and then the strikes get settled, and AI is part of everybody's life now, and everybody needed people who understood how to use AI that also knew how to tell stories. Well, the people that we trained were the first ones to really master those skills. So, all of a sudden they started getting attached to projects again.
There's another technology that you and I both love, that we're kind of on right now, which is podcasting. And I know that you really enjoy the future of podcasting. You think the future of entertainment is podcasting. Can you speak to why that is? What do you see in podcasting that maybe other people don't see?
Well, number one, there are very few barriers to entry. When we try to start cable networks, you had to go to cable companies all around, and you had to convince them. And again, when we started there were 10,000 cable companies in the U.S. alone. So just trying to get 10,000 people to say yes to you was really hard, and then consolidated. But you still have a lot of gatekeepers. With podcasting, there are no gatekeepers. It's really, you got to develop something good and you got to really figure out how to market it. and stuff. But the economics of podcasting are such that you no longer need big audiences to justify the expense. And our feeling is, unless you can figure out how to get something to become profitable, it will go away because the realities of life take over. You got to pay the rent and buy food and do all that stuff. So what podcasting does, it lets you, I call super serve
Mm.
communities of interest, people who are really passionate about a certain subject that big media could never really serve because it just wasn't a big enough niche to be able to support it. But now with podcasting, if you get, literally in the thousands of people that are interested in what you're doing, there are companies that would die to be able to target and reach those thousands of passionate people. So you can make economic sense out of them, for things that would never be broadcast because they just don't reach enough people.
Yeah, no, it's a massive opportunity for so many people. When you're talking about it not being financially feasible to talk about AI, let's say 5 or 10 years ago, but someone could start a podcast, and indeed many people did, and now you can have, cross collaborations between AI and psychology, AI and neuroscience, let's say. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're actually doing I've got a talk show that's going to come on in the spring on television, and it features a woman who's a motivational coach, inspirational feature, and speaker, and she'll be the first woman in nighttime television here, because it's all guys, and they all do the same thing. So it's so Tom Cruise, tell us about your next movie. It's all promotional. She's inspirational, motivational, and whatever, and she life coaches a lot of people, a lot of big names in business and entertainment, and she um, she gets a lot of money for life coaching. But what we're doing is we're actually creating the AI avatar of her, so that for very little money, anybody, you're going to be able to pay 9.95 a month, and you're going to be able to get the same kind of coaching, but you're going to get it from her AI avatar and not her directly. But because she's been on over 200 podcasts and written books and speeches and stuff, we really could build the equivalent of her in the digital world.
Yeah, there's some kind of, what ChatGPT did in 2022 was democratize access to a GPT-like technology. And it seems like what you're hovering around and probably double clicking on is democratizing access to just influencers, to leaders. You can make AI avatars of potentially anybody. And if they have enough content online, then anybody can access those things. What does that do for the future of entertainment or the future of consumption as well?
Well, I think, we're seeing audience migrate more and more from mass media to niche media and stuff, and that'll continue. I mean, if you're like today, if you wanted me to start a TV network, I'd say don't do it because who cares what NBC wants me to watch on Thursday night at 8 o'clock? I mean, I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it on the device I want to watch it on. And I want to be able to get really authentic. I think authenticity is I can get that out of smaller media where I can't get it. When you're doing big media and you need hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to be able to support it, you're always compromising. You're always dumbing it down. You're programming to the lowest common denominator. With podcasting, you're going the other way. You're going to people who really know and love and feel passionate about whatever that subject matter is, um, and stuff. And it just changes, what people want to consume because, like, if I'm interested in a certain thing and I know I could get it on a podcast, I just absolutely love it. But it's got to be totally on demand, and sometimes I want to watch it on my phone, sometimes on my laptop, sometimes I want to throw it up on the big TV. It's got to be all. There's no single answer. It's not this or that. It's all.
Yeah, and you were talking about before, how do you not let bad actors into the podcasting space or in the space in general? Do we have any kind of filters for that?
Not now. I mean, anybody could buy. All you need is a camera in your bedroom and a light. With the one that we're doing, Stall Talk, which is really all about women's empowerment, um, and stuff. We have women of four different generations and stuff. I and again, a lot of this comes from my cable experience. When you bring out new technology, people get fascinated with it and they're willing to put up with bad production.
Mm.
Um, so a lot of the podcasts, everybody's got a podcast and they got a little camera in their bedroom and a lamp um, and stuff. More and more, you're going to need to be higher production value. So we started Stall Talk the other way. So I'm shooting it in a little podcast studio with four cameras in 4K with audio that was designed by an audio engineer and lighting designed by a lighting engineer. So when you look at it, it looks like television. It looks like a TV talk show, even though it's a podcast. And we switch and stuff like that. But we do it's just showing, so we shoot an hour, and then we're literally using an AI program to do the edit. Um, so literally within 15 minutes, we've already pulled out the social media
Mm.
posts from the video, and then 2 hours later, we've actually ready to broadcast and stuff. So putting all those things together um, really does it and stuff like that. But I think everybody's going to start to see that you can't be low quality forever. You get away with it at the beginning.
Yeah, you get away with it at the beginning because you're just finding your groove, but eventually you do have to invest more time, energy, and frankly, money into the process.
Yeah.
There is something about the podcasting competition space in the sense of I don't think Stall Talk is going to go up against Lex Friedman, let's say. I think those can exist simultaneously.
Yeah. They have different audiences and they provide different purposes. And the number we're finding with Stall Talk, I mean, it's brand new. It's only a few months old now. Um, we're finding women under 40 um, who are absolutely loving it and going, we never thought we'd see something that resonates with us so directly um, and stuff. So it's geared to a niche audience. It doesn't want to be to everybody. It wants to be for certain people and stuff like that. And, it's funny for me because I talk to networks and, I say, you folks should really think of a show like this could replace The View.
Mm.
They're like, oh no, Larry, women under 40 don't watch television. And I'm going, well, did you ever think maybe they don't watch television because you don't programming anything they want to watch?
Mhm.
And they kind of look at me like, huh, that's odd. We never thought of it that way. Well, I go, well, you should start thinking it that way. If you don't put you could have something that's time anchored, but then you need to stream it after. So if I miss it when it first goes on, I want to watch it when I feel like, and I may want to watch it on my cell phone, while I'm on the train or something.
You've done this a couple of times now, not just a couple, but you always point to what's not rocket science. You're very good at seeing exactly what people are not seeing. Like people have this blind spot that they have for some reason, and you're able to see directly to that and then create a business out of that. How did you hone in on that skill? Was that natural or did you acquire that?
Well, a lot of it started out as natural and stuff, but then as I kept going on, I realized it was one of the things that were making me successful. Coming from immigrant stock, um, we're very humble, um, and just people are going, "Oh, that's genius," and I'm going, I figured out that people around the world love Hollywood gossip. I mean, come on. We executed it really well, obviously. Um, but it was just there. And people try and hold on to what was. They
Mm.
spend too much time holding on to what was as opposed to thinking about what can be. And I think that's what I've been good at. And, that's kind of been, my life is looking at stuff and going, why not? Why well, what do you mean I'm not Rupert Murdoch? I can do that.
Did you have any media kind of mentors or leaders that you looked up to during the early phase of your career or even now?
Yeah, when, I started at Manhattan Cable
Yep.
and, when cable was pretty much an unknown. And, the first one I worked for, when I was a technician, I worked for a guy named Frank Ciano. And Frank was just a great people person um, and stuff. So I learned quite a bit from him. And then when Time Inc. bought the company, they put Nick Nicholas in, um, who was really showed me the other side, the corporate side of things, and how to develop those corporate disciplines and stuff, and understand that at the end of the day, um, people are people, and we all got to eat. And
Mhm.
if we can't figure out how eventually we're going to make money, don't do this. Follow your passion stuff, because if it doesn't lead to paying the rent and buying food and educating your kid, you're not going to be able to sustain it over the long haul.
Sure.
So, those are my two early mentors and stuff. And then, of course, as I started getting into media, I would study Ted Turner and I'd study Rupert Murdoch and stuff like that. And quite honestly, learn a lot about not just what to do, but what not to do.
Sure.
Uh, like in China, it was kind of interesting, because Rupert Murdoch was trying to do China for 15 years and never could make an inroad there. And then when the Chinese invited me in, I was like, going, okay, great. Why are you being so nice to me? And they're going, Larry, it's really simple. We have a fight with Rupert Murdoch, it's front page of the Wall Street Journal. We have a fight
Mm,
with you, we go out for drinks, we scream and yell for a night, but tomorrow we're good. I said, for now, we'd rather do it that way. And, so in that, and then just in the family that I grew up in, and we grew up in a very multicultural area. So we never thought about it. I mean, so it wasn't like we were thinking about it. It was just like, yeah, you're brown, you're black, I'm this, whatever. It's like those are just where we live.
yeah.
Um, and your friends and who you played on the baseball team with or the football team with, and stuff. But my mother was very interesting. When my parents moved to Florida, uh, my I would go to my mom's house. This is after my dad passed, and I would go, oh, tonight I feel like going for Italian food at 8 o'clock, and she would go, no, we're going to go to the deli at 5:30, and I'm like, I don't eat at 5:30, and I don't want deli because you're a guest in my house. If you don't like the rules, go stay in a hotel. And that's what I've taken into all these other countries. It's like I'm not there to change their way of living. I'm not there to change their government. Um, I'm there to help them escape from their shitty days and provide them with entertainment and stuff. And that's really helped me in Russia, and it's helped me in China. Is that they see I'm not there to make political statements or anything like that. I'm there to take people's mind off of their problems.
Just have some type of social impact for them, you know?
Yeah.
It's if you could go back and teach your younger self something, anything, first of all, would you? And if so, what would it be?
Um, uh, I can't really think of anything in particular because I've kind of developed and I wrote this book and it was an interesting process because I realized there were like really 8 phases in my life,
Yep.
like growing up in Coney Island, Brooklyn, and then working in the cable company, and then coming to LA, and then my years, my Russia years, my China years. Um, so I constantly reinvent myself. Um, and stuff because I never really got stuck in any one thing. And so, um, I probably would have been smarter with personal relationships.
Mm.
Um, I look back and, my daughter had a kid, so I have a little grandbaby now.
Congrats.
And it's great because I've got the time to really put into the kid. And I said, you know what? It would have been great if I had that to put into when my kids were growing up and I didn't do it. And and maybe because, at a different point in my life economically,
Sure.
financially, um, you know, I was building then and now it's more building on, not building from scratch and stuff.
Is
So
is that something that you would change in terms of building E versus?
well no, I mean kind of it was one of those things that had a momentum all of its own. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as it went on the air, everybody was like, "Oh my God, you should have told us." And we're
Mm.
like, "Yeah, we did tell you for 3.5 years." Um, so no, I wouldn't change that at all. Um, again, we did amazing stuff there, and I think some crazy number, like 7 or 8 people that came started with us, ended up becoming presidents of either TV networks or media
Oh, wow.
companies. Um, it was a great learning. Of course, you had to do everything. We didn't have money to have specialists, so you had to
Yeah.
learn everything. Um, so that really did it. And you know, back then in the days, if I come up with a weird idea, people go, "Oh my God, you're out of your mind!" You're either on drugs or you come from another planet. But then after literally we took the $2.5 million, and I think the valuation of the company is up somewhere around $6 billion and something like that. And now all of a sudden my ideas are not so crazy. So I've gone from being a drug addict or a lunatic, so now I'm a visionary, and I'm going, but I'm still the same person I was. Yeah, I wake up every day with 10 new ideas, but I'm very good at self-assessing. So I wake up, and by the time I go to sleep, I go, boy, did I have a lot of dopey ideas today. And I get rid of them really quick. Most people just get stuck on they do something and they go, I got to stay with it until it, whatever. I just go, bad idea next. What was I thinking? And we all have one thing in common, and that's time. I mean, we all have a lifespan of, X number of years. And so many entrepreneurs just get caught with following their passion. And, even when it become obvious that their passion is not going to lead them anywhere.
Mm.
And so they're wasting so much time doing what will never be, as opposed to cutting loose of it and doing the things that can become something.
How do you understand that as a young entrepreneur or entrepreneur in general?
Um,
How can you
I,
let go of your passion? That's the thing.
well, I think one of the things that I tell people, find something you're really good at. It may not be your passion, but find something you're really good, and then just put your time and effort into it and become great at it. And it will typically become your passion.
Mm. So the passion is found through consistency.
Yeah. and
Mm.
and getting better and better. I mean, you've got to excel at whatever it is you want to do. Like now, I could open a restaurant. I couldn't think of that years ago because I know that I've gotten good at doing it.
I want to kind of backtrack to you have 10 new ideas a day, and then you can go to sleep at night and self-assess and say, those and all of those ideas were kind of dopey. How do you self-assess? How do you not stick to one idea? Because one idea may seem so good in that moment, but then a couple of hours later, you want to do
Well,
away with
you
it.
learn. Well, you learn that just certain things after you do a little bit of research.
Mhm.
You find out, oh, that was a good idea, but so and so's already doing it. Um, so if I find out that when I look at any new project, I always put this one thing in my head. I look at it and go, what's going to happen when Rupert Murdoch finds out that I'm doing this? Did he just simply throw more money and more time and more people at it and bury me? So unless I can answer, how am I going to protect? And I use Rupert as symbolic.
Sure.
I mean, I don't really mean Rupert. Um, is this an idea that I could protect? Is there something that I could do or acquire or something that when he finds out, he's just going to go, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't think of that before Larry did. And if I can't do it, I don't waste my time doing it because I know I will get buried by the big guys. Um, so I just stay away from that. I mean, I spent 2.5 years. I was a primary consultant to Bill Gates and Microsoft for strategy, uh, TV strategy. And, I just learned, they were doing a negotiation with somebody and, somebody wanted them to pay $25 million a year for something. Um, I just said, no, we could do this a heck of a lot cheaper. And Bill goes, how? I said, well, if we invent this, this, and this, but it'll take years. And he goes, no, it'll take days. And I'm like, really? And they just when they decided to do it, they just put 100 people on it, and literally in a matter of days, they would do what I would have to build on internal cash flow, and it may take me years to get to the point. He could get to the same point in a few days. So I've always, been very cognizant of that, and stuff. So I look at that. You look at environmental changes. You know, it sounded like a good idea, but now people don't love Hollywood entertainment anymore. So, move on. I mean, not that that's true, but um, and So looking at and then technology, looking, I'm smart enough to know that, you know, whatever ChatGPT is today or AI is today, you can't even imagine what it's going to be in 10 years. Um, everybody is like, I mean, if you look at the difference between GBT and GBT-4, I mean, it was something like it's 800 times more powerful. I
Yeah.
mean, when the guilds and the unions were doing their negotiations and trying to protect against AI, I go, well, first of all, you shouldn't do 10-year deals. But nobody knows. Anybody tells you they know what's going to happen is lying. I mean, it's just not true. Um,
Especially in AI.
yeah, and so it's understanding those kind of things that you can't see that far into the future of technology such as AI. Um, and so you should either do shorter deals or build yourself out clauses into the deals that you're doing that if certain things happen and you have a way of getting around them or getting out. And and that's kind of the way I've looked at most things and stuff, and then go, is it something that even if I'm right, is it something I really want to do over the long haul? Everything is going to take you longer than you think it is or should, you know. So if I have a new idea, yeah, I go, okay, do I really, I think I could do this in a year, but what if it's 5 years? Do I really want to be doing this
Hmm.
in 5 years? And so, I just apply all those kind of thoughts to it.
Yeah, that's particularly brilliant. If the timeline right now is a year, but if it took 5 years, would I actually really want to do this, or does it
Yeah.
just seem nice in my head? That's interesting. What advice do you have for younger people in general that maybe are getting into the entertainment podcasting space but don't know where to start?
Well, number one, is there enough of an audience? Is the niche big enough to be able to sustain this idea financially? Because if it's not, like I said, life takes over. I don't care who you are, life takes over. Um, and then, do I know how to get to that audience? Are there efficient ways of getting the word out? So, like, if I'm going to do something about foreign film, do I know how to find all the foreign film enthusiasts who may want to watch something that's really, really focused on foreign film, not just fluffy stuff, but the real detail? And and again, it goes back to money. If you can't sustain it financially, it's going to go away. Um, so, I always tell people to look at it that way. Um, like I say, it's kind of, I'm the anti follow your passion person in that sense.
Look at the numbers, look at the logic, actually think about it. Don't just go with the a flow or
Yeah,
something.
and then look at technology and realize that in a year from now, technology is going to be so much further. I mean,
Mhm.
even if you don't know exactly what it's going to be, you know it's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, like I say, just look at GBT to GBT-4 and go, the growth was exponential. And, if you would have told me a year ago what GBT-4 and all those other offshoots are doing, I mean, now, I mean, to give you an example, I'm doing this book and, I'm going, oh, I wish I had people to do research for me. And I said, you know what, let me play with this. I just went on one of my AI programs and said, make a list of all the bookshops in the LA area within 50 miles. Um, tell me who to contact, what's their contact information, and then write a very specific email to each one of those, why their bookshop should take my book and have me do a book signing. And literally in an hour,
Mhm.
I had done I mean, it was done, and the emails are flawless and they're ready to go out and stuff like that. I go, how do you not love that kind of stuff? I mean, with AI, like I talk to the guilds and unions, I go, so it takes me an hour to do what used to take me 5 days. I can either do more of it and make more money. I can learn how to speak Spanish. I could have more time with my grandkid. I'm reclaiming the most valuable thing that possibly exists for all of us. I said,
Right.
how do you not love that and embrace it? Protect yourself against the bad people who want to do bad things.
Mhm.
Um, and again, when I do speeches and stuff, I said it's very simple. I said, when you look at driving a car, I said, if a 12-year-old decides he wants to drive a car, he can't just take the keys and go drive the car. You got to be a certain age. You got to take driver's education. You got to take a driver's test. And then you got to obey the rules of the road, or there are penalties for not obeying the rules of the road. I said, in AI, all our politicians are putting their head in the sand and thinking, oh, well, just ignore it. It'll get better or whatever. It's not. We got to create. I mean, I'm not a big one for government regulation, but we need some level of something that tells bad people that if you do bad things, there are going to be consequences.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like the Wild West out there, and I'm just hoping that people, either come to terms as a free market, or, some leaders either on podcasts and such start, getting our heads properly around the technology on what it is and what it can be.
Yeah.
There there seems a lot of misinformation, obviously, and so getting the conversation in a proper place, I guess, would be
Yeah.
very important.
Then you look at things and you look at, how some of these technologies are combined when you combine AI with other things like holographics.
Mm.
I mean, I was on the advisory board of the Einstein Foundation. And when Albert died, he left all his IP to Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And so, I said, if I go to a college, I look at things are wrong. So if you go to a lecture hall in college, there's 500 kids sitting there basically sleeping with some boring professor telling them something. I said, but if you had physics, what if I had a hologram of Albert teaching the theory of relativity?
Right.
Um, so there's a whole body of work. We could build the AI avatar. So we could beam his hologram all over the world. We can make him speak any language he needs to speak so that in any country. I said, wouldn't it be fascinating to have Albert Einstein teach people the theory of relativity? You'd keep people's attention. But then you could apply that to almost anything. So you could find the best teachers in the world of any subject and they could literally teach the world. So it levels the playing field for education around the globe. I mean, there's miraculous stuff that's going to come. I mean, I'm on the board of a little robotics company, or I should say, advisory board, a little robotics company that's doing consumer level robotics and using AI. The next generation is AI control. So you could have this little robot babysit your kids, or teach your kids math, or I mean, it's just amazing all the stuff that's going to happen if you could imagine it, it's going to happen way beyond anything you could imagine.
Does it freak you out at all?
No, not at all.
No?
No.
Even even with like the genetic modification revolution, synthetic biology, nanotech, it's all exciting, right? It's all
All
necessary.
exciting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Just as a last couple of questions, I know we're a bit over the time, but if you had a magic wand and you could solve one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
So I got to stay away from politics, I guess. Um, I think the difference in economic realities for people. I mean, how we could be in this world and have people who don't know what they're going to eat for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
You might even in this country. I go, how do we have a kid go to school hungry in this country? How does that happen? Um, so, looking at I'd say solve the economic thing so that everybody should know that they're going to be able to raise their kid. They're going to be able to get medicine. They're going to be able to have doctors and all of that stuff. Those should not be worries that people have. We should be taking care. You know, we're all here on the same planet, and I think our job here is to leave it better than we found it, and literally in every way, from how people live to animal rights to environmental issues. We're here to make it better. We're not here to tear it down.
And I guess finally, what gives you hope in the world?
It's actually funny because before I was lamenting a little, particularly here with U.S. politics. I'm going, oh my God. Um, but with Stall Talk with our podcast, I think it was episode 3 where we actually introduced and interviewed this woman named Cheyenne Hunt, who was the only Gen Z woman to run for Congress in the U.S. And she was being interviewed by another Gen Z, and I watched it, and they were both so freaking intelligent.
Mhm.
I walked away going, you know what? Maybe there is hope for us as a human race, because rather than stick with all the old shit, these young folks are understanding life very differently than we understood it. And it's important. I mean, you look at things about hybrid work and stuff like that. And I'm going, you know what? They're right. I mean, just because we used to do it that way doesn't mean it was the right way. I
Right.
mean, it's not about working, yes, you got to work hard, you got to work smart, but you also have to live life. And I think, particularly younger folks are much more in tune with that than, folks from my generation.
Seems like you're also a diplomat for Gen Z.
I just want to learn
Yeah.
from them, so I'm pretty open-minded. I mean, some stuff I don't agree with, but a lot of stuff I do agree with. So,
And there's a balance of communication, being open-minded and being open to new ideas from them, but also being wise and open to correct them when they go too astray or too far, or course correct them. There's a
yeah,
healthy
I mean,
balance.
Stone Talk is a good example because we got people, we have 4 different hosts or co-hosts, and from different generations. So we go from a boomer to a Gen Z and then everything in between. Um, and the show is supposed to be, really about real women talking real, authentic stuff. And so I stay pretty far in the background. I mean, the whole entire team is female and stuff. And I tell them, I look at my role as bodyguard. I said, I'm going to let you guys shoot yourself in the foot all day long. If you're going to shoot yourself in the head, I'm going to step in.
Mm,
That's kind of the way I manage it. It's like, it's a learning experience for you, and you're doing it. You are the audience, so you should understand it better than I do.
right.
Um, and as long as you're not doing something that I think is going to kill the project, I'm just going to let you go. And if you fail, and hopefully you learn from failing.
Gosh. Larry, this has been a great conversation. I've personally learned a lot from you just over the past hour. Where can we find you online? Obviously, do you have Instagram and everything, or?
Yeah, I've got Instagram, Larry.Namer. And my Facebook is Larry Namer. And my Facebook, I actually do myself.
Hmm,
Um, and most people refer to it as my food blog.
nice,
Um, because these days, I pretty much stay away from work-related stuff. So I put down what I cook or funny things my little grandbaby does.
nice.
Um, and a lot of the other stuff, the TikToks and all that stuff, I don't. I mean, I watch it. I learn a lot. I've actually been working on a movie project that I've been using TikTok to cast from.
Hmm.
Um,
How does that work?
it works great because the thing that I'm doing is uh, it's kind of groundbreaking, and I want new, fresh talent that doesn't have stuff. And I think there's amazing stuff. Again, technology has brought the price of creativity way down, and
Right.
there's amazing talent on there and so much fun. And I think how many movies do I really have to watch that really want to watch that are 2 hours long versus, you know, little 1 minute videos that entertain me, and I could eat them when I feel like, snackable.
Right. Right. There was there seems like there's just this drop in creative pricing now, and that's opening up an entire new world. So I'm very excited for that. When
Yeah.
is your cookbook coming out?
Uh, I'm told that it's going to be live on Amazon February 4th, and it's called Off Script,
Hmm.
which pretty much is the story of my life. It's off script.
Love it. Love it. Well, Larry, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
All righty. Take care now. Good luck.